Hi, today I'd like to talk about Heroes of Adventure. This is an RPG by the nameless designer and is self-published on itch.io. The game is split into 3 books, a player's guide, a monster manual, and a GM's guide, all of which can be downloaded for free. This is a d20 plus skill dice system, meaning that you will roll a d20 and another die ranging from a d4 to a d12, and adding the results of both dice to try to meet or beat a difficulty number. As of the recording of this video, the game has had 3 versions or editions, but the core mechanics have remained mostly unchanged. The game opts for an OSR feel and a compact selection of races, only having humans, beastmen, dwarves, elves, half-elves, and halflings. However, players can choose from a wide selection of class packages, meaning there's a core class that can be diversified through archetypes or subclasses, if you want to call them that. The book also contains tables for backstory generation. Characters are made of the following stats. They have health, inspiration, which we will discuss in a moment, defense, damage resistance, skills, abilities, and equipment. When performing a check, a player rolls a d20 and the die type or size that corresponds to their skill rating, which goes from a d4 to a maximum of d12. Then, after rolling the dice, the player checks the totals of both of these dice. For example, we have a 15 and the 1, assuming that our skill is at a d6. So, 15 plus 1 equals 16. We then compare this result to a difficulty rating that has been set up by the GM. If we meet or beat this difficulty rating, we are successful. The same mechanic applies for casting spells. Characters also have abilities, which work like feats in other systems. They are generally active abilities, and they need to be declared before they can be used during gameplay. Some abilities also have a cost in a resource called inspiration, which is one of the core stats for players. Inspiration is a renewable resource and is fully refilled or restocked after a long rest. But you will spend inspiration whenever you want to use one of your character's active abilities. When in combat, a character will roll a d20 and the appropriate die for their combat skill, whether that's melee or ranged, and then compare the sum of both dice to a creature's armor or defense. If we meet or beat the defense, then we roll our damage die, which is basically dictated by the weapon, and then we apply the damage. In some cases, creatures have an armor reduction, which removes a certain portion of the damage from the total. This is only if the monster has this armor reduction, though. Players can also have a small amount of armor reduction or damage reduction based on the armor they equip. The game also has an in-depth alchemy and crafting system. More information can be found in the GM's guide as well as the monster manual, since it details what sort of components can be harvested from the different creatures. Combat is zone-based, meaning there is no need to count individual spaces. Rather, if you have a battle map like this, or if you draw a crude map of the fighting area, characters can simply move from one zone to another in their turn as their action, and they can also perform an attack. As mentioned before, the 3 books have a lot of useful information for character generation, as well as backstories, dungeon generation, quest design, monster customization, alchemy, crafting, and a lot more. The game also has its own setting, but you are of course welcome to devise your own. Now let's quickly go over some tips for solo play. The game is quite accommodating, letting you control a single character, but if you would like to run a small party of 2 to 3 characters, I would suggest giving your companion a standard or a global skill rating, which is logical based on their abilities or class. I would say D20 plus D8 for all their skills is a good middle ground. If you want to make things a bit grittier, then use a D6. Whenever your companions take an action that seems logical, roll the D20 and their skill die and try to beat a difficulty number. 10 is a good number for everything. When designing encounters, the bestiary will include or indicate how many creatures can appear. You have to roll a die for this. You can decide to keep the roll, go for an average number, or make it equal to the party size, and add 1 or 2 extra enemies if the creatures are of lower level than you. It is important to mention that you will have to roll for both the characters and for the monsters, so keep that in mind. Also, use the inspiration mechanic included in the game. This is a renewable resource that can be used not only for your abilities, but also to gain advantage, roll 2 d20s and keep the best, or to reroll a failed check. If you want to go for a super heroic feel, you can rule up that you can recover up to half of your total inspiration on a short rest, although the normal rules for recovery after a full rest are quite generous in my opinion. As I mentioned before, this is a very complete system that allows for very flexible gameplay, and the additional information in the Monster Manual and the GM's Guide can be applied for other TTRPGs. The best thing about this system is that it's completely free. I'll leave links in the description box where you can find the system. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see me make more content like this, be sure to follow.